Hello and welcome. This is Atul Wadkar, your instructor. In the last session, we have discussed about the basics of Python. Also, we have talked about the syntax of Python. We have started writing small codes in Python, and we have understood how the Python syntax works. We have also discussed the importance of indentation in Python, and we have declared some basic variables in Python, and we have performed some basic mathematical operations like division, addition, subtraction, and multiplication on the Python variables. We have not studied Python operators yet, and even we haven't studied Python variables in detail. So in this lecture, we'll study the variables in Python, and in the next lecture, or in this lecture only, we are going to discuss about the data types in Python as well. So what is variable? That is the first important question that should be in your mind. So as far as the variable is concerned, the variable is an entity which stores some data and its value can be changed during programming. So that is the variable. That means the variable is a container that stores some data. For example, if you want to control the fan based on the room temperature, so in that case, you have to store the room temperature in some variable or in some container. So it's like a container only. So for example, you are reading a continuous room temperature that must be handled somewhere, that must be stored in some memory. So some memory is allocated, and in that real-time temperature is stored. The name of that memory is nothing but the variable. So it's just a tag to that memory location. Basically, whenever you declare some variable in any programming language, that will instruct the compiler or interpreter to allocate or to reserve some memory location. And this is nothing but variable. So you reserve a memory location, and in that memory location you can store some data, and the variable name is nothing but just a tag of that particular memory location. Of course, every variable will have the address as well. So we are not talking about address here, we are just talking about the variable names, and in the programming we are going to handle the variables by its name. So very simple example is, so in case of temperature control fan, you have to read a real-time room temperature. Now that room temperature must be stored in some thing or in some container, and that container is nothing but variable. Now the real-time room temperature is going to change continuously. So value stored in that container will be changing continuously during the programming, and if it is allowed to vary, so that is nothing but the variable. On the other hand, there are constants as well. The constant is also storing some data or some information, but its value cannot be changed. But this time we are talking about variables. So the value stored by the variable may be changed during the programming. Then we'll study the type of variable. So for example, the variable type can be int, can be float, or can be string even, or even complicated types like or derived type like say tuple can be there. So we are going to discuss the data types in detail next, right, or how we can print the type of any declared variable. Again, we are going to study the rules to define some variable names. So for example, defining variables is up to the user. User can define n number of variables in the programming, and also the names of variables are purely on user's control, or the user is actually giving some name to the variables. But what can be the name? There are certain rules, some grammatical rules, or the Python language rules you have to follow in order to declare some variable names. And also we'll study the special cases in case of variables where we can assign multiple values to multiple variables on a single line, or a single value to multiple variables, and using a single line command only. So that is again an interesting thing about the Python variables. So now we'll actually start working on the variables. Now I'll open the Python IDE, and there we'll discuss how we can define some variables. So as you know that there is no shortcut key for Python IDE. So you just type IDLE in search bar and that will show you this thing, the IDLE Python, and just click on it. So it will open the Python shell. Okay. And now today I'm going to perform operations only on this window. Here I'm going to do some experiments with the Python variable. Now you can declare any number of variables. It's up to the user, as we have got large amount of memory. So for example, if I declare a equals to 10 and hit enter, so this is a Python variable. Now you wonder that we haven't declared any type of this variable. So we haven't studied the data types yet, but we have not declared like integer, float, or character, or maybe string as a type to this variable. Automatically that type will be assigned to this variable. So that is my question, if it is the type is going to auto assign to that variable, or the type cannot be random or can be a random thing. So we can print the type of our variable using type function. For example, I can write print then type of a, and then I can print this thing. So here it is showing this is of integer type. So always remember, to print the type of variable, we'll use the type function, which is predefined function. Now if I write b equals to hello, so now again this is going to be a variable, and can we print the type of this variable? Yes, by using this type function you can print the type of this variable. This time it is showing str, which is nothing but string. This is the string kind of variable. Now let's define c equals to 4.2, and now I want to print the type of this variable c, and s, it is floating kind of variable. So we have declared three different types of variables. So one was integer type of variable, the another is the string kind of variable, and the third one is floating type of variable. So this is okay, I have used different names. So this is the name of this variable. So there will be a container whose tag will be a, and in which the 10 will be stored. Now secondly, here I have declared a container whose value or whose name is b, and the value stored in that container is hello, which is string type of value. Here again I have declared a container, and its name is c, or the tag is c, and inside that I have stored 4.2. So basically, when you declare variable, automatically some memory locations are reserved, and some data can be stored in that memory location. In other programming language, the main problem was initially you have to declare the type of this variable, and after that some data can go inside that variable. Here you need not to declare the type of variable. The type is automatically assigned, or it is automatically assumed based on what data you are storing in it. For example, if I declare a equals to 10, and this time if you print the type of this variable, so a, so you will find that the type is integer. But similarly, if I declare a equals to 10.5 this time, and want to print the type of a, now what will be the answer? Now let's wait here for a few seconds and just talk about this thing. So initially I have declared a as a variable, and I have stored 10, the value inside that, so automatically the type of a was integer. This time I'm using the same variable which was previously declared. Now a is previously declared, I'm just assigning some value to it. So instead of 10, I'm assigning 10.5 this time. So will it still display the type integer, because already previously its type is integer. So now I'm just changing the value stored in it. I'm not changing the variable name, I'm not defining new variable, I'm just changing value stored in previous variable a to, instead of 10 to 10.5. So now what will happen in this case? Will it show the integer type as integer, and firstly will it print 10.5 if I want to print a instead of type of a. If I try to print the value of this thing, value of this variable, will it display 10.5 or it will display 10 as it is integer type of variable. In case of C language, okay, so some of you may be familiar with programming in C. In case of C language, if you declared such kind of variable, initially if you declared its type as integer and then if you try to assign any floating point number to it, it will not take that floating point number, rather it will round up that number to near it or the integer value. So it will not consider that fractional point. So here what will happen? So will Python going to follow the other programming languages such as C, or will it be different in this kind of instructions? So firstly let's check the type of this A. So whenever I'll hit enter, now clearly the type of this variable is float, which is the floating point number, and that is the important thing. So initially when you declared A as an integer and you put integer type number, so its type was integer, and whenever you're going to change the data stored in that variable, so its type is automatically changed, and based on the data its type is changed. Okay, now the A is floating point. Not only this, even you can change to a non-numeric thing like hello. So I am just changing the name or whatever data stored in A to hello. Now this time it's a string kind of data. Now in case of other programming like C, this will not happen. So this thing will not be accepted in C language, but whether it's now the Python, and we are going to check whether the Python is going to follow the C language or it will have some different kind of thing for this particular assignment. So let's hit enter and let's check whether it's going to throw an error or it's going to accept this thing. So here it has accepted the hello as a value to variable A. So that's a very good thing, very good thing. So now here we can check the type of the A, and clearly it will show its a type is string. So this time this type of A is string, and if I want to print the value stored in A, simply I can do like this and it will store the value stored in A. Now it should be a hello, or it should print hello, and here it is, and here we go, it is printing hello on the screen. So this is an interesting thing in case of Python, that you need not to define or you know to declare the type of variable. That is number one thing. Number two, you need not to worry about the data which you are going to store in that variable. So as soon as you declare or you store a string kind of data in the variable, automatically its type will be string. If you store a floating point number inside the variable, automatically its type will be floating point number. And if you store integer type of data inside the variable, then its type will be integer. So by using type function, you can actually check the type of data which you are going to store in the variable. Now coming to the next point. So as far as the variables are concerned, their names are purely in user's hand. So user can write any names to the variable. So whatever names you want, you can assign to the variable. So I can assign any name like XYZ, PQ, my variable, or anything. Okay, so the number one rule that you must follow: the variable name should not be any keyword. For example, this int is a keyword in Python, so this should not be the variable name. Okay, because this is not the accepted variable name. A username is user defined, user can declare any names, but this int is previously defined in Python, so it cannot be the variable name. So number one rule is the variable name should not be the keyword in Python, or this is the same rule in other programs. The variable name should not be the keyword. The number two rule: the variable name should not contain any special characters like this hash this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, or even this thing is not allowed as a variable or inside the variable name. So these kind of special characters are not allowed inside the variable name, or you can't make a variable name using these kind of special character. But you can actually use one special character, that is underscore. So this is the only special character available in order to use as a variable name. Number 3, the variable name should not contain any space in between. For example, if you declare a variable like my space variable equals to 10, so this is not valid statement in Python. So this is clearly not allowed thing in Python, because this is not the valid variable name. It should not contain any space in between. So that's the important thing you have to keep in mind. Always you have to put a watch on it, so or you have to remember this thing while declaring the variable name. Secondly, the variable name can contain alphanumeric things like my variable or my variable 2. So these are alphabets and this is number, so this is perfectly fine. This is okay as far as the variable name is concerned. So my variable 2 is perfectly fine. But you can't start any variable with the number like 10 people. So this is invalid variable name in Python. So this kind of variable name is clearly invalid in Python, as it is starting with the number or the digit. So variable name can start with any alphabet or an underscore character. So if you start a variable name like underscore my variable equals to 10, so this is valid variable name in Python. But if you're writing like 10 people, in this case initially you are assigning or a digit or a number is at the beginning, so that is not allowed as a variable name in Python. So you can see some of the valid variable names in Python and some invalid variable names in Python. For example, if you declare a equals to 10, so it's valid variable name as it's having the single character only as a variable name. Secondly, if you declared this kind of variable name like capital A equals to 10, or even I write here 5, or in this case also it's a valid variable name. But this small a equal to 10 and this capital A equals to 5, these are two different variables. So a equal to 10 is a different variable and a equals to 5 is a different variable name. This is because this language is case sensitive. So this small case letter is treated differently and this capital case letter treated differently. So this a and this a is not the same. Actually they are different containers, and this is this 10 is stored to different memory location and this a is stored, or this 5 is stored to different memory location. So as you can see, this a and this a is same as far as the English language is concerned, but in Python this a and this a is different because this language is case sensitive. So that is you have to consider, and that thing you need to keep in mind. So my variable equals to 25. This is valid variable name in Python as it contains some only characters or only alphabets, no digits, no special symbols, and even it is not containing any space inside the variable name. So it's perfectly fine and it's a valid variable name. But let's say let's experiment with other names. So my variable 10 equals to 25. This is again a valid variable name in Python. Here again it contains some alphanumeric terms. So it has some alphabets and as well as some numbers like ones and zero. So it's again a valid variable name in Python. Perfectly fine, no worries about this variable name. So again we are going to do some experiments. So my 10 variable. So will it be the valid variable name in Python, as it contains digits in between, not at the start and not at the end. So will it be the valid variable name? So let's check. So it should be the valid, and it is the valid variable name in Python because it contains some alphabets and numbers, numeric terms. So it's okay. Now it is the valid variable name in Python. So now again let's do one more experiment, like 10 my variables equals to 25. Now in this case the variable name is starting with the number, so in this case it should be the invalid variable name in Python. So this is not allowed as a variable name in Python, and here it is showing the syntax error, invalid syntax, because such thing 10 my variable cannot be the variable name in Python. So this is how you have to take care about the variable names in Python. Okay, so let's do a few more experiments with the my variable. Now if I write my space variable equals to 25, now can it be the valid variable name in Python? So clearly, as this variable contains this space, it should not be the valid variable name, and when I'll hit enter it should show some error message. So again it is showing the syntax error, invalid syntax, as this is not the valid variable name in Python, as it contains space inside the variable name. So that is not valid variable name. Okay, so let's do one more experiment. So my let's add right here hash variable equals to 25. So can we test this as a valid variable name? So as far as this is concerned, there are no numbers involved, and again I'm just using this hash inside this variable name. So can it be the variable valid variable name? So clearly this is not the valid variable name, as it contains the special symbol hash, and here it is. So it is not the valid variable name. Okay, and as it is, we are using, this is something different error it's throwing as compared to the syntax error. This is because when you write hash in Python, that becomes a comment. So here it becomes the comment, but this my is treated as a variable name, so it is not previously defined. That's why it is throwing that error. But even if you try my percentage, or not the percentage, again it's an operator in Python, so I'll use variable equals to 25 and hit enter. Again it is showing the syntax error. Okay, so this is how, this is again an operator in Python. So this is clearly a syntax error in Python. Okay, so these things you have to take care wherever you are going to declare some variable names in Python. So clearly it's invalid. Okay, let it be if it is invalid, but what if I write my variable and at the end if I write such kind of symbol and then 25, will it be the valid variable name in Python? So this time I'm adding one special character, but in previous cases I have added in between the variable name, inside the variable name, here and here, but this time I'm adding at the end. So will it be the valid variable name in Python? So that's the big question. So again it's not the valid variable name. Even what if I add any special character at the beginning, for example like this, my variable equals to 25. So again I'm not adding this character in between or at the end, but I am adding at the beginning. So will it be the valid variable name in Python? So again it's clearly not the valid variable name, as the variable name cannot start with any special character. So that thing you have to take care, that no special symbol is allowed inside the variable name. Okay, so as no special symbol or no special character is allowed, as I previously said, that you can use the underscore character as a inside the variable name, or it is allowed as a variable name. So for example, if I add my variable underscore, this time I have added one special character underscore or special symbol underscore at the end of this variable name, so will it be the valid variable name? So that's the big question. So as far as the definition is concerned, so initially we have said that you can use underscore character in variables, and that is allowed to use as a variable. Okay, so let's check that whether it's happening and it's true. So here it is perfectly fine, and even you can print the type of or this my variable underscore, and you'll get the 25 as an answer. And even you can print the type of this my variable, so it should display the integer type of this variable, and here we go. So its type is integer. So you can use the underscore character at the end. Can I use underscore character in the middle of the variable name? And here I am asking 25. So is it possible, or is it going to be the perfect thing in Python? So when I hit enter, there is no error, so it's perfectly fine in Python. You can add the underscore character at the middle of the variable name as well. And now if I print the value of this thing, my underscore variable, it is perfectly fine. Sorry, it's not, it's throw the error. This is because, as I said, the small case letter and the capital letters are treated different in Python. So here I have declared my underscore variable V capital, but whenever I try to print it, so my underscore variable, so I have written V small. That's why this error has occurred. But this name is perfectly fine. So let's try one more time. Print my underscore capital V variable, and now I hit enter, and I'll check whether it is printing 25. So here we go, it is printing 25, and it's perfectly fine and the correct variable name in the Python. Now what if I add the underscore character at the beginning, and if I declare my variable and equals to 25, will be the correct variable name? So it's fine that you can add the underscore character at the middle of your variable or inside the variable name, or you can add the underscore character at the end of the variable name. In both the cases we didn't get any kind of error. But what if I add the underscore character at the beginning of variable name? Will it accept that thing? So definitely it's going to accept it, as we have already said that the variable name can start with any alphabet or by the underscore character. So as far as the definition is concerned, this is perfectly okay and this will work. So now if I want to print the type of this variable, you can print using the type function, type my variable V capital, and here we go. No worries about it, it's integer type. And even you can print the value also, underscore my variable, and it's perfectly fine without any question. It's 25. Okay, so this is how you can declare some variable names. And one more thing, if I write int equals to 25, now as the int is the keyword in Python, it's for the data type. So will it be a variable name, or can the Python will accept the int as a variable name? So here it has accepted, but you should not use, okay, so you should not use the int or float or anything as a variable name in Python. Otherwise it's going to create confusion that what kind of the data type and what kind of variables you are going to use. Now we'll discuss about declaring the multiple variables on the single line and assigning some value to it. For example, in case of other programming language, if you have to declare multiple variables, then you can declare using, for example, in C, you can declare multiple variables like A, comma, B, comma, C. So this is a valid statement in C language. Of course, you have to add a semicolon. If you have to assign different values, then A equal to 10, then comma b equals to, let's say, 20, and then c equals to, let's say, 5. This is how you could write in C programming language. So you can declare multiple variables on the single line, and also you can assign the values, different values to those variables. So is it possible in Python as well? For example, I want to declare x, comma y, comma z, and then I want to assign some values like 10, comma 20.5, and then I just want to assign different value to that. So let's say hello is the value that I want to assign to z. So will it be fine in case of Python, or it should be x equal to 10, comma y equal to 20, comma z equal to or 20.5, or z equal to hello? It should be like that, or this thing is acceptable in Python. Okay, so this is perfectly fine, and if you try to print the value of x, it will give you answer. Even you can print the value of y, which is different thing, and if you print the value of z, it is again the different thing. Even the types of x, y, and z are different. If you try to print the type of x, you will find the different answer. It is of integer type. And then the type of y, again it's a different answer. And if you want to print the type of z, again it's the different answer. So here, though we have assigned the same variables on the single line with different values, and their types can be different things, or they can be same, or they can be different things. So here in the first case, the x is of integer type, as the 10 is the value which is assigned to x, and this y is having this 20.5 as it is floating point number, so the type of that is float. And here in the case of z, as this value is of string type, so it is showing its type as string. Now this is one case that you can have the multiple variables on the single line, and they can be having different values. Is it possible to have all variables a single value? For example, x equals to y equals to z, and equals to, if you write 25, so is it acceptable statement in Python, and is it a correct thing in Python? So this was not allowed in case of C programming language, but let's check whether it works in Python. So if you hit enter here, now it's perfectly fine. And if you want to print the x, now it's 25, print y must be 25, and print z, again it must be 25 only. So all the variables are assigned one single value. So this is again an interesting thing in Python. So this is how you can assign multiple values to different variables, and this is how you can assign a single values to multiple. So here x, y, and z holds a single value. It doesn't mean that the x and y and z represent one single container. The x is different, y is different, and z is different. So this allocates different memory location, this allocates different memory location, and the z uses different memory location. Only thing is that a same value, only 25 is stored in all these memory locations, but practically speaking, 3 different memory locations are reserved for these 3 variables. The value stored in all memory locations is the same. That is the only thing. So this is all about dealing with the variables in Python, declaring the variables, assigning different names to variables, and we have also discussed what are the rules that you must be considered in order to assign the variable names. And we have also discussed how we can declare multiple variables on single line, and how can assign the values to those variables. Even we have discussed how to assign a single value to different number of variables. Okay, so this is all about the variables, and I hope you understood the declaring the variables, and also I assume that you have understood the purpose of declaring those variables. So variable holds data, and data can be temperature or anything. And again, one of the important things that I want to discuss with you, the variable name can be anything. You can give any name to variable following the rules which I have just discussed. But I'll recommend, or I'll strongly recommend, you should give the relevant name to the variable. For example, if you are reading a room temperature and you would declare like this: A equal to 20.5 degrees centigrade, for example. Now here it is perfectly fine, no issues with this declaration, it is grammatically correct. And here in this case, A is a variable which stores the room temperature. So no worries in terms of programming, but in order to make it more readable, more understandable, and in order to make your code neat and clean, I strongly recommend you give the relevant name or the specific name to that variable. So if it is reading the room temperature, so I can give room underscore temperature. So now it is more readable. Now this is again the variable name. So I have given room underscore temperature as a name to this variable, and which is storing 20.5. So by reading this line, I can clearly understand that this is the room temperature and this is going to hold the room temperature. But after reading this, I may not be able to understand what exactly this 20.5 is and what is this A. So it is strongly recommended from my side to use the specific name or relevant name to your variables, and also relevant names to your Python file, the program file as well. Okay, so that's all for today's session. In the next session, we'll learn the data types in Python. And firstly, we'll learn what is data, and after that, we'll discuss the different data types in Python and how to use those data types. And also, we'll discuss the operators in Python. So stay connected with me, and thanks for watching.